Up next, abortion law challenge.
You still have to look at, is there a life-threatening condition to the mother?
And while there is technically a medical exception to the bans, no one knows what it means, and the state won't tell us.
The Texas Supreme Court hears arguments on whether the new state law is too vague and causing confusion. Not done yet.
You gotta stay tuned.
Governor Abbott remains vague on whether he will call a fifth special session on school choice. One-on-one, we asked Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick about casino gambling in Texas, his war of words with Speaker Dade Phelan, and school choice. I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas starts right now. Hello and welcome. We begin with the mix of sports and politics and the story that raised a lot of eyebrows this week here in North Texas. The sale of a majority stake of the Dallas Mavericks by owner Mark Cuban to Miriam Adelson and her son-in-law Patrick DeMont, who control the Sands Corporation, which runs casino resort operations internationally. Cuban has said he'd like to build a new arena as part of a casino resort in Dallas, even though they are illegal in Texas so far. As Steve Pickett reports, the sale puts the issue of casino gambling back in the headlines.
46.5.
It may be a sure shot money-wise on the sale of the Dallas Mavericks, but no slam dunk on rolling the dice, if you will, to build a new Mavericks arena in alignment with a casino resort. Here's why. Betting on the horses in Texas is legal. Hitting the slot machines or the roulette table in casinos like these is not. So, what are the odds in this merge of the Mavs with prominent casino creators? It is a political gamble that Texas law would possibly change.
Right. As of now, there is no authorization for casino gambling in the state.
SMU political science professor Matthew Wilson.
Texas already has a lottery. Texas already has betting on horse races. So it's not as if the state is in principle opposed to gambling. And there's a lot of tourism dollars to be attracted by this. Right now, Texas is losing money by residents who go out of state to Oklahoma, to Louisiana, to New Mexico for gambling. And so a lot of those dollars could be kept here in the state.
You know, Texas is built on...
There continues to be strong lobbying of Texas lawmakers for sports betting and casino operations. The city of Dallas is already making way for a new convention center on the south end of downtown. Cuban has said before a new arena should go there as well, as part of an entertainment resort that offers what is prohibited right now: casino gambling.
A spokesperson from the group Visit Dallas said they support investment in attractions that will surely draw visitation to our city. A City of Dallas spokesperson said it looks forward to the Dallas Mavericks playing and staying in the city for years to come. Now to the legal challenge over the state's abortion law. This week, the Texas Supreme Court heard arguments in a lawsuit that claims the law is vague and confusing. This case went to the state's highest court after a lower state court issued a ruling that would have allowed more exceptions to the abortion ban involving medically complicated pregnancies.
I place the blame firmly at the feet of the state.
Lauren Miller of Dallas is one of 20 women and 2 doctors who sue the state of Texas. At the Supreme Court in Austin, the Texas Attorney General's office argued the women have no standing to sue the state and instead should have filed medical malpractice claims against their doctors.
Some of these women may appear to have fallen within the exception, but their doctor still said no. That's not the fault of the law. That's a decision of the doctor.
We first met Miller in March after she and others filed suit. She said she had to travel out of state to get an abortion when her doctor discovered one of the twin boys they were expecting was placing the other's life and Miller's life at risk. Miller told reporters her doctor is the wrong person to sue.
Here's my doctor. I don't know what more they want. She is standing here alongside me. She's a fabulous doctor.
She and other plaintiffs said the reason doctors wouldn't perform their necessary abortions is because the state law was too vague.
And while there is technically a medical exception to the bans, no one knows what it means, and the state won't tell us.
Earlier this year, the legislature passed a bill to clear up any confusion over what is considered medically necessary. But the Attorney General's office said the law was always very clear and that abortions could be performed only if the mother's life was at risk. Jonathan Sines of Texas Values agrees.
The fact that the legislature decided to, out of an abundance of caution and consideration, to address these issues and make it even more clear to eliminate any doubt is not an indication that the law was not already sufficient to begin with.
He said he believes the court will rule in the state's favor, and plaintiffs say they're feeling positive as well.
We are optimistic that the court heard us, heard them, and saw them.
If doctors perform abortions illegally, they could face prison time, fines, and losing their medical licenses. Legal experts say the Texas Supreme Court will likely rule in this case before June. The case will then go back to the lower state court for consideration. The state's abortion ban is one of the topics Vice President Kamala Harris weighed in on during her trip to Houston this week. She was in Texas speaking with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus for an outreach event.
In states across our country, including here, extremist so-called leaders passed laws to criminalize healthcare providers. Here in Texas, it's my understanding that literally the law provides for a life term in prison for a healthcare provider, laws to punish women for simply exercising bodily autonomy, the right that all people should have to make decisions about their own body.
The vice president and her husband, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, also headlined a fundraiser in Houston. Emhoff said Democrats would never give up on Texas, where Republicans have had a lock on statewide races for 30 years. Another Texas law is facing a legal challenge as well. This one centers around school library books and the fact that booksellers must disclose a rating for any sexual content inside. A federal judge blocked House Bill 900 from taking effect last August, and on Wednesday, the full U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans held a hearing on the matter to determine whether the law is unconstitutional. Booksellers brought a lawsuit against the state earlier this year. One law Governor Greg Abbott has pushed very hard to pass in Texas is taxpayer subsidies for students to attend private school. We've been telling you about this for months. But after the latest attempt was recently defeated in the House, the fourth special session has remained at a political standstill. Earlier this week, the governor remained vague when asked if he would call lawmakers back for a fifth special session.
You got to stay tuned.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
The governor said earlier this month that he would veto any bill that didn't include education savings accounts and bring lawmakers back to the Capitol next month, January and February if necessary. A House member told me this week Republicans, who are in the majority, are looking at their options. Lawmakers in the House could consider two bills approved by the Senate. One gave the green light to education savings accounts, while the other legislation gave schools more money and teachers a pay raise. A political analyst we spoke with says he thinks, politically speaking, of course, it would be best for the governor to move on.
At this point for Abbott, the best thing to do, honestly, would be to exit the field and to point fingers at other actors. So if Abbott continues to push on this, into the next year, ultimately it starts to make him look weak as a governor because he's repeatedly showing that this is actually not something that he can accomplish.
Last week, Governor Abbott endorsed the re-election campaigns of the 58 House Republicans who voted to keep education savings accounts in the bill. The fourth special session ends next week. The North Texas Municipal Water District says a cyber attack impacted its business side of its network. The district said the issue has been mostly resolved and the attack did not affect the water system itself. A spokesperson said the district expects its phone network, which has been affected since November 12th, to be back online sometime this week. Coming up, we go one-on-one with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick about the House rejecting taxpayer subsidies for students to attend private school, casino gambling in Texas, and his war of words with Speaker Dade Phelan. And later, the state has passed 3 border security bills, and opponents call them extreme and plan on filing a legal challenge on at least one of them. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas. We'll be back in a moment. Was the first day you were presiding over the Senate in a while.
In a while. I had pneumonia.
How are you feeling?
I feel fine. It's going to take me maybe a little bit longer to get 100% energy, but I'm I'm back a long way from where I was, so thanks for asking. But I will share with people that pneumonia is a real thing going around, and it's tough it's tough for every age group, from children on up. So be aware of it and do your best. Get some rest if you feel like you may have it.
I wanted to ask you something that's everybody's talking about up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area this week. It's the sale of the Dallas Mavericks by Mark Cuban to Miriam Adelson, who, as you know, is head of the Sands Corporation, Casino Resorts International. And, you know, one of the things that Cuban has said is that he wants to build a new arena as part of a downtown casino resort.
Right.
And to do that, there has to be a change in the Texas Constitution. So my question to you is, do you think during the next regular legislative session, there would be more support in the Texas legislature for that?
You're talking about 13 months from now, Jack, after we've been here 12 months. I don't think, and I like her a lot. I've met her a number of times. She's a delightful lady. I don't think them buying the majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks impacts that other issue at all. They're two totally separate issues. Look, the people who want to build casinos in Texas have simply not been able to wrangle the votes from the members. That's how a bill is passed. It's not up to the governor, it's not up to the speaker, and it's not up to me. You know, the governor last time said, I'll look at a bill. Well, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement. You know, I didn't see the governor do anything to try to pass it. I didn't see him call a press conference on it. The House tried, they failed on the casino. We didn't have the votes or anywhere near those in the Senate. So I've continued to tell the people who are interested in that, like any other bill we pass, you have to get the members to support it. You can't take a shortcut and say, well, if the governor says, vote for it, or the lieutenant governor, or the speaker, then it happens. You want to put that to the test? Look at school choice. The governor's been working on that issue, not gambling, he's working on school choice all year. I've been working on school choice. We passed it in 15, 17, and 4 times this year. There are members in the House who said, I don't care what the governor says. I don't care what bills the Senate passes.
You haven't said publicly where you stand on this. Why is that?
There are lots of issues, Jack. I don't say where I stand. But we pass hundreds of bills. And there are priority bills that I talk about, obviously. Property taxes, securing the border, things that everyone in the community, the Republicans and many Democrats support, school choice, for example, parental rights. I don't take a position on every bill. But I have been very consistent in one thing that the public wouldn't notice, but I've said this to anyone on any issue. I do not split my Republican caucus. And what I mean by that is we have 19 Republicans. If there's a bill coming to the floor that's going to be a 10-9 vote of Republicans, I don't bring it to the floor. I don't care what it is, because that's how you divide your membership. So I bring bills to the floor that we have at least 15 or 16 out of the 19 who support it. Usually it works out, it's unanimous, or maybe 18 out of 19. I mean, we had 1 no vote on school choice, for example. But in the House, they pass a lot of legislation with a majority of Democrats and maybe half the Republicans. We don't do that in the Senate. There might be some small bill or something a Democrat has, but on any major legislation, we don't pass a bill with 12 Democrats and 8 or 9 Republicans. And my experience and my knowledge is that we aren't even anywhere close to having 15 votes or 16 votes for casinos or sports betting. I think sports betting may be a little closer than the casinos. And you'll also note, Jack, that when the session was over, there was not a hue and cry from voters calling their senators or their House members, gosh, you didn't pass it, I needed this bill. We do get that on other bills. So the members aren't really getting a lot of that feedback. And I've told the casino people and the sports betting people, that's just the way it works here. They just look at it, well, this bill, and no, you have to build the support, and you build the support by working one-on-one with senators. Look, it took me, Jack, 10 years to pass this big property tax bill. Property taxes. I had to build a consensus. And there were times when I was in the Senate, I couldn't even get a bill on the floor. Then Lieutenant Governor wouldn't even bring the bill up. And so this big property tax cut I've been working on this before I was a senator for 20 years. Big things don't happen overnight. You just don't wave the magic wand. You have to get in the trenches and grind it out. And all the lobby who likes to say, well, it's Dan Patrick, or it's Greg Abbott, or it's the speaker, they have to blame someone on their failures. And don't forget, the lobby, they don't mind if a bill fails because they get paid to try it again.
I wanted to ask you about a judge's ruling yesterday ordering DPS to release all of the law enforcement files on the deadly shooting in Uvalde last year. And so I'm wondering, is that something you support, or do you think that DPS should try to appeal that?
I don't know, Jack. I'm not advised. I haven't read it, haven't read the court decision if it happened just yesterday, so I'm not advised. I believe in transparency, so there are some things that you always have to, in any kind of tragedy, be sensitive to the families. Sometimes families don't want to see that. So there's that line of total transparency, which I believe in. And whether it was that shooting or another shooting or any type of horrific moment, that you kind of have to weigh that. And so I just don't know the court decision. So.
You said presiding today in the Senate that you've been here 17 years and you've never been here in December.
Correct.
Presiding.
Correct.
And so I wanted to ask you about the 5th special session, because everybody's wondering, do you support Governor Abbott calling a 5th special session after the House stripped taxpayer-financed education savings accounts from House Bill 1?
Yeah. I think we should continue to try. I don't think it would be productive to come back now, 3 weeks before Christmas. The House over there voted against school choice. I think the best time to come back would be February 5th, 30 days before the election. That's when I would do it.
Why?
It would put the focus on the voters and the people they're voting for, who's for school choice and who's not. That's when I would do it. I'm not the governor, but that's when I would bring us back.
Should the House pass Senate Bill 2, which was about
teacher pay raises,
yes, and raising the per student allotment for school districts?
Yeah, Jack, I have been careful in the past, almost every year I've been here, to be very protective of the House and not be overly critical, because we have to work together, and we want to work together, and the voters don't want to see us, they don't want to see infighting between the governor and the speaker, the governor and me, or the speaker and myself. They don't want to see that. But the House is just totally dysfunctional. Dade is incapable of leading in the House. I mean, every bill that the governor put on the call since summertime, the Senate's passed. Every one. Every one. It's got an SB in front of it. It doesn't matter if it's an HB in front of it. I don't care if it's a House bill or a Senate bill. But they either pass bills that have to be totally rewritten, or they don't pass the bills at all. So the Speaker apparently, I haven't read it in full, put out a statement today about school security money, and that we waited long. There's 5 days left in the session. It doesn't end until the middle of next week. So he's saying, what he's really saying is he can't get a quorum, is what he's saying. He can't get his members back because they've just said, we're not coming back, is my belief. There's 5 days left. If he doesn't bring them back, rural teachers aren't going to get a $10,000 pay raise. Urban teachers aren't going to get $1,000 in pay raises. School security is not going to get the $800 million that we passed off the floor today.
Coming up, we go one-on-one with State Representative Victoria Neave-Criado about the border security bills passed by the legislature that she calls extreme. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas. We'll be right back. The state legislature has passed 3 border security bills, and opponents call them unnecessary and extreme. And the ACLU of Texas vows it will sue the state over the new law that makes it a state crime for a migrant to cross into Texas illegally. We spoke one-on-one with Democratic State Representative Victoria Neave Criado of Mesquite, who also chairs the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, about this.
Senate Bill 4, along with Senate Bill 4 from the third call special session, are both extreme bills that just really pit neighbor against neighbor. The significant issues with this most recent piece of legislation is that we believe it's clearly unconstitutional. It's a violation of the Supremacy Clause. It's a violation of the 14th Amendment and other provisions, because immigration law is something that is normally within the purview of the federal government. And here, what Texas is trying to do is create legislation that's not just limited to the border, but has statewide ramifications that gives local law enforcement the power to arrest and remove, or in essence, deport individuals if they are not, do not have status and meet certain elements of these new crimes. This legislation is going to lead to racial profiling all across the state of Texas, just like we saw there were ramifications back in 2017 after the Senate Bill 4 that passed back then. But really, we want individuals to report to law enforcement, not to fear law enforcement or fear reporting crimes like they did years ago. And it's taken, our hardworking men and women in blue years to really redevelop those relationships and reestablish those community police relationships so that people feel more comfortable reporting. And so there are numerous issues with these pieces of legislation, but we know that it's a solution that does not address the root causes of the immigration situation that we're seeing on the border.
The ACLU of Texas has vowed to challenge the state law once Governor Abbott signs it. And is your organization going to be joining them?
We want to make sure that we will be supporting efforts where there is litigation. We did everything that we could as members to fight the legislation using the rules of the House, as well as lay the evidence before the committee and the authors about the devastating impacts that these bills are going to have.
What is the potential impact? You talked about a little bit about the impacts, but I know that some sheriffs, specifically Dallas County, has expressed concern about this potentially filling up the jail, and they are already tight on space there.
Right. Dallas County and other counties testified about how, one, their jails are already packed. They don't have the facilities, the extreme cost that this is going to, that it's gonna cost local taxpayers. The counties testified that they could potentially be bankrupt, not just because of this requirement of now holding people in jails until they cannot be released until either they're proved to be a citizen or not, but they also are now going to be required to be removed to a port of entry. What that means is they can be taken to DFW Airport, which is a port of entry in North Texas, and required to go back to the country from which they came, or they can be taken down to a port of entry on the border. Who's going to pay for that? The state's not picking up the tab on that. That's going to fall on local tax